My name is Jose Moran, and I'm the chair for the Arts Council Board of Directors, and I'm really happy to be here this morning in this beautiful artistic space, and then just featuring our featured artists today. As we are gathering, because of the art, we are gathering around art, we're gathering around artistic and creativity, and that's what it is. And I believe most of us here are artists in our own way, in our own right. So it is a pleasure and it is a pride for the Arts Council to feature Greg Hawthorne, who has been an artist probably since he was born, as some of us are, as we are passionate about the art, passionate about expressing our story through different mediums. So, as you know through his biography, Greg has been in the area since 1985 in Big Sur. He has a big gallery, and I was just talking, and he said, have you been to our gallery? It's an amazing space. You can actually come and visit, and some of you are saying, yes, I've been to that space. So, I haven't, and I definitely will, because that is something that it is part of our trajectory and our path to really be exposed to the art in our area. So as you know, Greg has a trajectory of art. Throughout the years, he has been commissioned from different cities to be the artist in different art pieces. But you know, there's something that Greg says. He says, art is a process for which is influenced by this changing society. And so that's, more or less I paraphrase your quote on that. But also he says something that is interesting to me. He says, art should be the medium to which we stop and listen. And so I believe that that's what it is. The arts can be that for us. And can we, as artists, influence the changing society? We can. And I believe that's the reason that we're here today. And through Greg's experience, you'll find out today what it takes to put an initiative such as his, and also to get some insight into what art can really do. Not just in the artistic medium, but also in the political, and the social and economic. You might not know this, but Greg sits in the council for South City. So he's active politically, economically, and artistically, for sure. So without further ado, and before I introduce Mr. Hawthorne, we would like for all of us to put our devices in silence as we are recording this event for all of us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Greg Hawthorne.
Good. Well, what we're going to talk about today is, I call it the art of business. A lot of people think that artists come into this thing and then they're either magically gifted or they're going to have some magic bullet is going to make them famous. You know, and a lot of artists are just waiting for that moment. I'm going to be discovered by a museum. I'm going to be discovered by this corporation. I'm going to go right to the top of the pinnacle, and that's what it takes. Well, I'm here to tell you that doesn't work like that. Okay? So it's a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and a lot of effort on your part, and then, you know, if you can make a living as the artist, you should be happy with that. That's a great start. And that's what I tell my children, my grandchildren we're gonna start there. All you want to do is make a living. If you can make a living and all you get to do is art, I've never had a job. Okay, so I've only been an artist. So when I left college, I went and I'm going to try being an artist. If I can't, I'll go back. I was in pre-med, so I could be a doctor. But I never went back, and I never got a job either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how I did it. So yeah, some of you are going to look back and go, well, that's the way I went through my whole thing. And some of you are going to go, no, that's not the way I did it. But I was born in Detroit, Michigan. And So I was a normal kid, went to the Catholic school down about a mile away from my house, and had all these nuns, that would teach us. And that painting up there is called First Day of School. And you would go in, and there was all these paintings around. You looked around, the nun was there, your mom was holding your hand, and you went in there, and you just go, God, this is cool, And because you noticed all the little drawings and paintings, that's what made you excited about it. It wasn't the books, for me anyway. It was like seeing all the drawings on the wall and going, oh, I want to do one of those. So anyway, that's where I started. I was highly dyslexic, so I couldn't read until I was in second grade, and which seems like a long time today, seeing how my grandson at 3 is, I got books on everything going for him, and he's going to school. But we didn't, back then, we didn't believe in that, or my parents didn't. They said, well, when you get to school, you'll learn to read. Well, that was a little bit of a eye-opener. But the one thing the nuns loved was singing, smart kids, which I didn't fit in, and then in drawing. They loved the arts. And so if you could draw, then they just kind of went, oh, Mr. Hawthorne. They called you by your last name, of course. They never called you by your first name. And that's where my love of art started. I started to go, wow, I can make these nuns happy. And so, because my father was an architect, and he was a very staunch critic. Everything was not good enough as far as he was concerned. I'd do a drawing, oh, that's good, but you could do better. And then he'd sit me down and he'd go, you can do this, this, and this, and it'll help it out, which was great. And then I'd do a model for school. The nuns would say, it's an A, we want you to make a big one. I take it back and he goes, you turn that in? That's disgusting. Let's make something that's really good. So I know that was a little bit critical for a little kid, but it made me understand what the difference between quality and just doing it. And it was a big difference. He was the youngest man to become an architect in Michigan's history, because he didn't go to school. All he did, he didn't go to college. He took the test, the AIA test, and passed it the first time. And nobody's ever done that before. And so he went to a trade school, learned how to do drafting in high school, and then skipped college and went right on to become one of the top architects in Michigan. My grandfather was, on my mother's side, was a craftsman. He did upholstery and built furniture, but he did the prototypes for both Cadillac and Lincoln. Their first leather prototypes were done by my grandfather. And so I used to go in his shop and sit around, and he'd fill his mouth full of tacks, and and just to watch him was just amazing. And he didn't use anything to hold down the leather or the material. He did all the antiques for all the museums, and he'd use his hand because the material was so valuable. He didn't want to tear it, so he used his hands and then put in just like the old style and go all the way around. So I used to watch him, and we'd listen to the ball games of Ernie Harwell, who was the baseball announcer. And so the two of us would listen to the ball game while he was working, and I was pounding nails in wood and watching him. So that was our background, our family background. We're probably the only family in the United States that all siblings became artists in different mediums, and we all married artists in different mediums. And the most fantastic thing is we're all still married. So that's the part that sets us aside, I think, more than anything. But and they're all successful. They all do well. And the reason is that we've kind of come up with the concept. I started off in high school, and when I was in high school, again, I had a choice between typing and art. So I chose art. Who wants to learn how to type? I still can't type, but I would always pay somebody to type my term papers and so forth when I was in school. And there was this little guy called Mr. Rybars, who was the art teacher. And Mr. Rybars, at first, I was kind of known as the guy that messed around a little bit. I don't know why they had that opinion, but anyway, when I came in, he said, Mr. Hawthorne, you're not going to give me a hard time, are you? I said, no, I really like art, so you don't have to worry. So anyway, we became friends. This guy really was a classic art teacher that you kind of go, and he would always encourage me. I would be drawing. He'd say, Greg, that looks good. Keep going. I want you to do something. So I want you to do a painting. So we all went back home. He gave us this assignment to do paintings. And so I took and went home and did a painting, and I brought it back in, and he looked at it, and he came up and he said, wow, I really like that. And I said, well, thank you. And, he says, no, I really like it. Can I have it? And I promise I'll never sell it. And I went, really? And he goes, no, I won't sell it. I want to keep it in my collection, to know that it was from you and all this stuff. And, and I want you to sign it and everything, and we'll date it. And I want to keep it. And I said, and I thought, well, I'm going to get an A in this class if I give him this piece of this little painting. So I said, sure, no problem. You have the painting. And so after that, he'd always encourage me, you got to keep painting. You got to keep painting. So I graduated from high school. This is 1969, 50 years to this year. So I'm going back for my 50th class reunion. Went to an all-boys Catholic high school. Beautiful place. It's like going to jail. Anyway, I go there, and I'm 58 on the lottery. I mean, it's the one lottery you don't want to win. So I was 58, which means I'm going to be drafted. If I leave college, I'm drafted. So what do I pick? Pre-med. Longest curriculum. Then I go to med school, I can just keep it up, and if they keep up the war, then I can go in as in a MASH unit and put guys back together again. So that was my plan. Well, the war kept on going until I was ready to take my MCATs, and then they ended the draft. So I told my parents, I'm going to go and see what I can do, and if I can't become an artist, I can always go back to med school, and that's when I started. And I never looked back. So that's when I started. And what I did is I didn't have any money. My parents were divorced. I had left home at 18 and was living on my own, and so I had no money. So instead, I couldn't go to art school, so I just got all the books out of the library, brought them home, and I have pretty much a photographic memory on space. So I can go through art books and, oh yeah, I really like this one. And I would get all my favorite artists, contemporary artists, and would just keep going through all the things. So I could watch what's techniques, what styles, what everything that I liked. And then that's when I go back and I do drawings, and then come back. And my wife, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, we got married when she was 19 and I was 22. So she was a freshman, just out of her freshman year out of college. And so she had to finish college, and her dad said, well, if you guys get married, I'll help pay for her school. I said, okay, good deal. And so I just kept on painting, and she went to school, and we would kind of kept building up until we decided that this is great. And how did I do that? How did I start from nothing? I had no money, I had no education, I had no connections in the art world. How did I start? The start was I did sell my art any place I could put it. First show I did was a flea market in Detroit. I had an apartment in Detroit. I went down to the flea market, set up, my paintings and everything in the flea market because it was like $5. And a guy who owned a building in Detroit walked by, and he bought 5 paintings. He said, I'll take that one, that one, that one, that one. Can you deliver them? You bet I can deliver them. And so he put them up. And then I came back and I said, I'm starting. I'm there. I'm made it. And so anyway, he took me out to lunch. We took the paintings over. He wrote me a check. I came back. And my apartment in Detroit at that time was $80 a month, included all my utilities except my phone. So for $80. So man, I just paid for a couple of years of rents and everything else, and I felt loaded. And so then from that point on, we did any place that I could sell. They left a gas station open, I'd set up. No, I didn't do that. But I did mall shows. I went to one of those malls, and they'd set up on a mall. I would set up on I did street fairs. I went to, people would invite us over and have one of those parties where I was the entertainment, and I would bring in the paintings, and then everybody would have cocktails and go, hey, Greg, that's pretty good. Hey, have another cocktail, and try to sell the painting. But what I did is I just kept on moving so that I could keep the artwork flowing, and I could have money coming in and learning as I was going along. And then people would come up to me, Greg, I'm going to make you famous. And you listen to them, and it was going to make them rich, me poor, and then, have me working a lot of time, And that's what you all have to worry about, is that when somebody says that to you, you look at them and go, yeah, sure, And, but each time I would get more, I was starting to get, when I was on the street, I'd get approached by galleries, and they'd say, great, we really want to show your work. And then I'd say, okay, I'm going to come over and check out your gallery, because I wanted to check out their gallery. Then I checked on, how they talk to some of the artists, make sure they're paying them. And then I did my due diligence, and then I'd go, okay, well, let's do some business. And then I'd ask them first, how many are you going to buy? Well, we were just planning on doing consignment. No, I want you to have a little commitment here. You're going to buy something first, and I'll give you a good deal, but I want you to buy them. And so then some of them would go, yeah, we'll write you a check for so much. And then they got started. Then I'd show in that gallery, and then the next one would lead to another gallery. And then your name starts to get out there. That's what I said. There's no magic thing. It's you slowly work your way up, and then you start doing, and then people approach you, can you do a commission for me? Of course I can do a commission for you. So I think that a lot of artists assume that, it's your education, it's all these different things. And when I tell people it's more of your final product, nobody cares what all the other stuff you have. They really don't. It's great, the pedigree, and if you get, when they're buying something that's very expensive, they want to know where you're from and everything. I'm not poo-pooing that, but what I'm saying is that it's more your final finish. So when they look at that piece and they just go, wow, that's something else, that's what it's supposed to do. That's why it always bugs me when I look at art magazines and they have a big write-up. They have a minor picture about this big, but the write-up is 4 pages. Who cares? I don't, and it's somebody's opinion of somebody else's opinion. Most of the time it's DAs, which we call DAs, dead artists. And sometimes I knew the artist, and their write-up is totally miss. The guy was a wild, crazy person, and and he was hungry all the time. And Greg, I got to sell some of this, man. I got a mortgage coming up. I said, okay, man, we'll work. And their attitude was that they loved their work. Every artist loves their work. That's one of the most important things. You have to fall in love with your stuff. You have to go that, man, this is magical. When it's magical, it just kind of, you can sell it. It's not that hard. There's no special bullet. You just have I nailed this. You're a photographer, you nailed the shot. You're a painter, it's just like, the thing just rolls across the canvas. When it rolls across the canvas, you look at something and your eyes just jump around, and then it comes back, and then you go, God, I gotta do that again. And you just keep doing it. And that's when you know something's a success. If you just see it and then, okay, well, it's kind of boring. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's done, right? So and if you're a musician, whatever you are, there's moments. You have your moment. Cradle that moment and just think that I'm going to make this type of feeling again. I'm not saying repeat yourself. In fact, never repeat yourself. Repeating yourself is it's a joke. What you need to do is take that and take that a little bit further, and always keep pushing the boundaries. Now, sometimes you're going to fall off the cliff, right? Sometimes you're going to miss. And when you fall off the cliff, you've learned something. You've known that, ooh, I just went too far on this one. But then, the thing is that sometimes when you fall too far, you think, oh, God, all that work, and it just looks like shit. And then somebody walks in and goes, it's amazing. I love that piece. And you go, what? I love that piece. I want to buy it. I remember I did a painting, and this is when we lived back in Michigan, and it was a big one. It was 4 by 8, an abstract. And I had put it up in our living room. We had this house that was all done in cedar, and it was very cool. And the painting was fabulous, looked great with the furniture and everything. And my wife goes, don't sell it. That one is so great there. I don't want you to sell that. I said, okay, I'll say it. Next guy that comes into the house, it's always that when you don't want to sell something, I think that there's a little thing that goes out there that goes, that's the one we all want to buy, right? And so anyway, the next guy comes in, and I had a showing room downstairs in our basement. I had my studio down there and a showing room that I had all decked out. And so he walks in and he goes, I love that painting. And I said, well, thank you. He says, how much is it? So I thought, I'm not going to say it's not for sale. That's really corny. So I'll just make it 3 times more than I ever sold a painting for. So I gave him a price. He says, great, I'll take it. Oh, yes! And my wife comes back, and I said, I got good news for you and some bad news. Okay, what's the bad news? I said, the bad news, I sold that painting you wanted me to keep. Oh, damn, I told you to keep it. What's the good news? And I gave her the number, and she goes, okay, well, we're doing good. I said, wow, we've made it to a whole nother level. And so it's, I think that's part of the thing. A lot of people ask me, how should I make my pricing? Well, if you're selling them, then you're priced at the right spot. If nobody's buying your stuff, you're not priced right. I mean, it's not that difficult, okay? And it's, you have to make it so that there is a desire to buy your pieces. If you're going to make a living doing it, you definitely have to make it so that people think it's a value. That's the most important thing. It's a value. Remember that, right? Value. Value for the dollar. And always think about it, would I spend what I'm charging for this piece, would I buy it? Now, a lot of people don't think, well, I'm an artist, I don't want to buy something. No, you buy things. You have to buy a coat, pair of pants, you have to buy everything. So put a value on it. Your art has to have a value, that it's definitely worth this, and it should go up every year. I mean, if you're working hard, the value of your pieces will go up every year. It's not a made-up value, it just happens. You're selling at this rate, we better buy it because next year it's going to be more. And it depends on your popularity. As you get more popular, the prices will go, right? And so that's how you judge your prices. It's not anything, there's no real definite scale or how you should do it. It's how fast they sell. And now I know some of you are thinking, well, he's just talking about marketing and selling. If it doesn't sell, it's so fantastic it doesn't sell. Well, that's fine. If you want to keep it in your personal collection, I get it. Don't put a price on it, don't sell it. But if you want to make a living at it, and you're going to pay for your next meal, you got to make it so that it'll sell. So, do you want to have another job, or do you want to be an artist? You got to make that determination. If I want to be an artist, I'm doing stuff to make a living, as well as doing it for myself and for everybody else. It's not about that it's so special that I'm going to be famous. I'm just going to keep everything, and then they'll discover me, and I'll become famous. It won't happen. Okay? I mean, we got Van Gogh, but his brother just collected all his stuff, and then when he died, we're going to have a fire sale here. We're going to do some business. And he did a tremendous business. Theo did a great job by marketing his brother. And I mean, it was a tragic situation. But Van Gogh worked. I mean, he did incredible pieces, and you could see the quality of his pieces going up, and all his different personal issues were coming out in his paintings. You can do all that. But if you want to make a living and not cut off your ear, then what you want to do is make the prices reasonable and get involved in different things, like this Arts Council, get involved in different shows. Get your work out there. You just got to get it out there. If it's on a street, a street show at West End, you want to be in some kind of thing in Carmel, you want to be at a show, I used to go to Chicago, New York, Miami. I would go to Winter Park. I mean, that's when I was living in Michigan. I would do all that. When I moved out to California, I needed money because I bought my property in Big Sur, and I had to get cash. So where did I go? I went down to Beverly Hills. They had a Beverly Hills art show. I had the corner of Santa Monica and Rodeo Drive. And I took up the corner, and I set up my big paintings and stuff. Guys with limousines would go, they'd stop over. Guy would jump out. How much is that? Okay, I like that one. How much is that one? Okay, I'll take that one. How much is that one? Can you deliver it? Here's my address. Boom, he gives me a card, jumps back into his limo, and takes off. I mean, it was like, I'm in heaven. I did a show in Miami that was at, I went down there. It was my first time to Miami, and I came from Michigan. And I drove down my van, and I have like 4 shows planned that I'm going to go on these 4 shows. So the first show was Las Solas in Lauderdale. set up my thing. I sold 20 paintings in 2 hours. So I got ladies holding on to the thing. Mr. Hawthorne, I have this one. They were my own shills, you know, they were just going. And so people are seeing this, you know, and then they're coming over and they're grabbing. I got this one, Mr. Hawthorne. And I'm looking around for my dad, you know, like Mr. Hawthorne. And they just kept on grabbing different things. And they just, I will stand here, don't take your time. You know, and people are writing me checks. I'm going, God, I love America. So then we get going, and then I had a painting where 2 women are arguing. I had it first, and everything else. So what do you do? So I did the King Solomon thing. I said, okay, one of you are going to get the painting. The other one will have first choice in my van. I have some extra paintings in there, and you get first choice. Nobody's seen those paintings yet. And I'm going to bring those out. They were scheduled for my next show, but you're going to get first choice. One lady goes, I'll do it. So she came over and she found, I love this one. So I said, great, you got that one. And so at that point, I sold out. I sold out my paintings. I had 3 more shows to do. So I called up my wife. I said, I'm going to have to come back. And she says, what's wrong? And I said, I sold them all. I got to come back and paint. So I flew back to Michigan, and I painted furiously for 3 weeks because that was when my next show was. Painted like crazy, and then I brought them all on the plane. Took them as luggage. You know how much they charged me? Nothing. Back then, you didn't have that was before obviously 9/11 and everything, but all they charged me was baggage, a little excess baggage. I think it would cost me $50 extra, and I brought back 30 paintings. These are big paintings. So I'm taking, and the reason I knew about that because when I was in college, I had this job where I was driving rock groups around, you know, and they were bringing all their equipment on the planes, and I noticed that they would bring in all these things. Well, what the hell? We could bring paintings like that too. So that's what I did. I did the paintings, and I always dressed up in a linen suit, red shoes. I came in like I was important. I didn't have any money. I was a kid, but I felt like, and they treated me like the artist is here. He's got all his stuff. So they bring it in, and so they would load it up onto the plane, and I'd fly down, and I had a buddy of mine that would meet me down there who became one of my assistants for 32 years, and he'd pick me up at the airport. We'd drive over to the hotel, spend the night at the hotel, and then do the show the next day, which usually was about a 2-day show. And we did it like that. I know this is a little bit different, but that's the way, and it was everything was serendipitous. We just would move on to the next idea. When we got another idea of how we should do it, move on to the next. Then we came out and did a show in Palm Springs, and that's what brought me to California. I came from Michigan to Palm Springs to do a show there, and when we did quite well at the show, and everybody loved the pieces. And my wife goes, why are we living in Michigan? Let's move to California. And so that's when we moved to California. It was just we wanted to check it out. I bought, instead of renting a car, I bought an old Jaguar that we were driving around in Palm Springs, rented a house for a month, and I had my little 1-year-old who's 38 now. He's running around and, the hose naked, yeah, I'm having a great time. And so then we went back home to Michigan, and Michigan is gray and snowy, and we put him in a snowsuit, and he's out there, he's like, I don't like this, and he wanted to be back on the run around with the hose. I think that all of you, we're talking about the business of art, and I'm sure that many of you have gone through different styles like this, and you've probably done different shows, you've done different things, but what I wanted to do, instead of just me talking about myself or anything, I'm sure that you had quite a few questions, and then those questions will lead up to other ideas. So if you have some questions, let's fire away. I'll be happy to answer them. Sure.
Do you know if your high school teacher did in fact keep your piece, like you probably did?
I never checked on it. No, and I don't even know if he's alive. I'd have to check on that. But, I'm 68, going to be 68 next 2 weeks. And that would put him up there, about 85, I was figuring 86. But Anyway, I'll have to look him up. I'm going back to Detroit. I'm going to see if I can find out if I can get any information on him. I'd just like to call him up and thank him. That would be great. And that was a good start. That's the only art education I've had, was one class in high school. So, my son went to Rhode Island School of Design. My daughter went to CCA in glass. And so our next generation is much better equipped, but ours was mine was basically a desire thing. And then when my brother and sister said, well, if Greg can do it, anybody can do it. So they went into it, and also with, being the eldest, you got to blaze the trail. But
what are the styles that you used to do? And did you change styles and or mediums?
yeah, I changed styles. When I was first started off, it was back in the 70s. So I've been doing this gig for 47 years. But so when I started, it was mainly earth tones, very earth tone, and I did abstracts and figurative. I always jump back, I still do. I jump back between figurative and abstract and everything. But what I did is I used to paint, and this is kind of an interesting way, I would paint on masonite. Everybody knows what masonite is, and these guys are not old like us, so they probably didn't paint on masonite. Masonite was a compressed board, and I could buy a 4x8 sheet for $4. Cut that in half, I have two 4x4 pieces. Then what I do is do a molding around that piece of masonite, put gesso on it, do my painting on it, and I was painting very fast. I was young and aggressive and had to learn a lot in a very short period of time. So I'm painting on these paintings, and I figured I could paint them, do 2 a day, and sell them for $50 a piece if I had to. That makes $100 a day, paint 7 days a week. That would give me $700 a week. And that's what I started off with. That was my theory, that I can't fail. Because who's not going to buy a 4x4 painting, original painting, for $50? And which luckily I never had to do that. But that was with a thought pattern. I'd rather do that than work. Okay, so obviously when I got the paintings done, people are offering me way more than that, and then it was then it started going at $250, $300, $500, $1,000. Then you start to get so that you're putting more time in it too. You're not knocking out 2 a day at that, but you're not worried about it because you're going to make a lot more money. So if you get 500, you're getting 10 times as much as I was planning on getting for it. So I could lower my production a little bit. That was my whole theory. And so then when I started doing it, they got more complicated, and I started doing more interesting things, what I thought. And then I started really getting in, developing my figures and developing my styles. And then I kept going. But I did all different kinds of things. I did abstract, I did figurative, I did 3-dimensional faces coming out of canvas, which I was pretty well known for that, And so we started doing that. We did it out of 2 pieces of thin plywood with a honeycomb in the center, and dropped the faces down into it. So they weren't just attached to the surface, but they went right into the canvas, and then they were popping out. And if you were around Carmel in 1987, back in the early 80s, you would have seen my work because they had it in front of one of the galleries there. And I did one where the lady is opening her shirt and her boobs are coming out 3-dimensionally. And they put it right in the window. And boy, I tell you, that made Carmel really jump alive. It was really fun. They had so many people that were going in until one guy just walked in, I'm going to buy that thing because it's perfect. It makes everybody nervous. So, so when the Post Ranch started, they came over, and I was good friends with the guy who started the Post Ranch, and he said, Greg, we need some stools that are cool, man. Can you design a stool? I said, sure, I can design a stool. So I designed a stool for him. Then once I designed a stool, then people went, I love your stools. Can you design a chair for us? And I said, sure, I can design a chair. Can you do a coffee table? Can you do a dining room table? Can you do a sideboard table? And it just kept, so I got paid to start my own furniture business. So that's how I get into the furniture. Sculpture, the same way. People would say, can you design a sculpture for us? I said, yeah. So I designed a sculpture. And it's one thing in the arts, never say no. If you don't know how to do it, you can find out. You can work it. Don't sell more ability than you have, but if you feel good about it and you understand that you can do it, do it. It might take you twice as much work. You might get paid half as much as you think you should. But when the advantage is you've learned something and you've sold the deal and you've got something else in your repertoire. So you're getting paid to learn. So that's the big advantage.
Maybe you could share a little bit about your beautiful art gallery down in Big Sur and how you select the other artists that are there.
How do I select the artists? Have all of you been to our gallery in Big Sur? Has anybody not been to our gallery in Big Sur? Okay. All right. Well, I guess then you need to take a trip down there. You can go online and see it, but it's much more impressive if you go actually inside. And we have 63,000 square feet of sculpture spaced outside. We have 5,000 square feet inside and on the deck. So it's a pretty big facility. All our artists do one of a kind. We have no artists that do prints. There's no prints, there's no multiples. Even our bronze artists only do one-offs. I want unique. I want when you buy something from me, it's the only one in the world. Now, there's certain things like my chair designs and so forth. We repeat, but we make each one individually, and each one is not exactly the same, but it's close to the same design, so that you can pick, because chairs and functional things, you got to be able to do that. Albert Paley, this is an Albert Paley table right here, and this is one of his lamps, and that's one of his pieces. Now, this comes in a series that he did, let's say 20 of these. This is all forged steel right here. This is solid steel that's been pounded, and then this has been twisted. You don't see any of the welds. It looks like it's put together with magnets. It's just, and that is why it's so special. My son apprenticed under him for a year, and he said, Dad, these things, the amount of work that goes into each one of these things is phenomenal, because they have the guys grind out. He doesn't want, when he comes over, I see the weld here, grind it more. I want it done so I don't see it. And I want this and this. You don't see any caliper marks on the steel when it's coming through. It's just looks like taffy. You see, and it's just the way things are done. If you're going to work in the arts, you have to take it and you just take it to another limit. Now, sometimes you don't get paid for it as well as you should. Because you've worked on it so hard. But it's something that you can do, and it's special when you come down. Like when Albert does all his big sculptures, he told me that he never made enough money. He lost money on most of them, because now he's getting paid pretty well. But back in the early days, he would lose money on them because he wanted everybody to know he could do these large sculptures. But we have Albert Paley, the best steel man in the world today. This guy is the best in the world. He's closing down his studio at the end of this year. So I'm buying everything I possibly can to keep it so that we have his work in the gallery. And I tell my clients, get one, because the prices are going to go through the roof. Gustafson, he's the guy that does the ceramics. I have one upstairs. You don't see one down here. His is a raku. It's really special. I've known his work since the 70s. When I was a kid, and I said, man, this is the best ceramist I've ever seen. And he walked in my gallery, introduced himself. Yeah, man, you're part of our group. And then Max DeMoss. It just so happened I had done a deal with a LA gallery. They owed me a bunch of money. They didn't have the money, so they paid me. I said, I want this guy's sculptures. He's your biggest artist. You're going to have to pay him. So I'll trade you what you owe me for those sculptures. And so they gave me 2 of his sculptures, and I had one in my living room, one at my house in Tahoe. And I put them in there, and I just love the pieces. And then a guy comes knocking on a door. They said, there's a guy here. He's, yeah, because we get approached all the time by artists, obviously. And then I said, and who is he? He says, his name's Max DeMoss. His bronze is pretty cool. Max DeMoss, I own a couple of his. You want to meet him? Yeah, I'm coming right down. So I came down to meet him and walked in and introduced myself. And I said, I own a couple of your pieces already. He says, you do? That means I might have a chance of getting in your gallery. I said, you're in the gallery, buddy. If I have your pieces, you're in. So it's been, we don't really have to work too hard, but, and usually the way I pick it, if I know your work, I've seen your work around, you don't pick me, I pick you, and I've seen it, and then you know, it's then it becomes available. The two of us meet, and then it happens. We really work hard to sell our artists. I mean, we don't have 500, we don't have 50, we don't have 75 artists that we're selling. We only have about 19 artists, and we sell their work. I mean, we work on selling their work. We sell it all the time. We're the biggest sellers of every artist that we have. So that's how we do it.
Your success emerged prior to the explosion of social media marketing. Can you talk a little bit about, did you transition to that? What does it mean to you?
Social media is great. I personally don't have a personal Facebook. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in it. My business has Facebook, and I'm not interested in seeing what anybody eats or what they have for, you know, what their newest grandchildren look like. I mean, you know, unless it's mine, I really don't care. But one of the things is that social media does play a part, because obviously we're all involved on the internet, and so people can go to our gallery and find our gallery without too much problem. And so what they do is, you know, after we get done today, I'm hoping that all of you go back and go, oh yeah, check out this guy's thing. It's really worthwhile. You know, social media has its thing. I think it's way overdone. You know, just because you have something on social media or you put it up on there that it's going to sell, you know, little items, that works great. You got knickknacks, you got something that's very inexpensive, you can sell it very easily over the internet. But if it's a large item, you know, especially you know, a unique piece of art, people want to see it. They want to touch it, they want to see it, get up close, see the texture, see all the different parts of it. And that's what our business is about. You know, so our brick and mortar thing, it still works. But I have people contact me that want a Paley from Colorado. I've sold one in New York. In Miami. We just got a call from Miami, and they want a piece of his. So they know his work, and they know that we have it. And Paley directs a lot of people to us too, that they should talk to us. And then we sell that piece and then ship it to them. In our gallery, we include all the crating for all the pieces. Is all included. You buy something from us, the crating's in it. We also take care, if you're in California, we deliver for no cost, and we set it up, we hang it for you, we do everything. So we're no a la carte in this business. We don't pay for shipping because we ship all over the world, and I'd go broke if I paid for it. I'm not Amazon. I can't afford to do that.
You were mentioning earlier when you were first starting out that gallery that you said you have to buy my stuff first. I was struck by that because nowadays I seem to see galleries that say, if you want to show your work, then you have to pay me. It's just everywhere.
If you want to show your work, you got to pay them.
It's all the time. I'm sure everyone here has had that. Yeah, to be able to show your work, especially here, but all over the place. So you obviously didn't come.
No, I didn't do that route. You know, there's a lot of things. If you got to pay them, then they obviously aren't feeling that they can sell your work. They're basically collecting rent from you, right? And then that's not a gallery you want. Okay, so that's not where you want to do business. I mean, they have to have money in the game and stuff. I can understand that they don't want to buy your art, but they'll sell it for you, and they're going to want a 50% kick off your art, right? But they're your partner. They're your partner. You made the art, and they handle it from there. They're going to handle the shipping. They're going to handle the crating for you. They're going to handle the sales. They're going to take care of all this stuff. They're going to collect the money. They're going to guarantee the money to you, right? So that's your partner.
You touched on it a little bit, the fact that you only sell original pieces. And I'm kind of an amateur collector, but I'm also an artist.
Right.
And I've been reading, and I can't figure out, because there's pros and cons debating doing giclées or doing limited editions of your pieces. I personally only want to have a one-of-a-kind original piece that there's no copy of.
Right.
However, if you're on the artist side of it, or you're an emerging artist, having a greater presence by having giclées or prints is a way of getting more exposure, and then the argument is that then elevates the price of the original piece. Can you comment on what?
Well, that definitely works. I mean, there's a lot of artists that do. The giclée thing is a joke as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to do a print, you're doing a print, you know, so you put a little paint on it. I mean, come on, really? I mean, really? I mean, get real. Just doing prints is fine if that's what you want to do. That's a different.
I don't, and I don't want, and that's why I want to know, because I have a lot of friends who are artists who are doing that.
Right.
And I personally, because I have collected a lot of art, I'm at a point now where if it's not an original, one-of-a-kind piece, I'm not buying it.
Well, I think that's the best attitude, and that's where you're going to get the most value for your pieces. I mean, you know, over a long period of time. If you score on the right artist, you're going to be happy, you know, and the value is going to go way up. Even if it doesn't, you got to enjoy it, and you know you got the only one in the world, right?
And by the way, from an investment perspective, because my background's in investment, art last year was the #1 best investment.
Right. One of the things is that there's a certain thing, and hopefully there's nobody in here in the tax world, but the, you know, you can pass on your artwork to your children. You can pass on everything else. It's not, and, you know, they've been doing it in Europe, the castles. You know, some of the castles on some of these most famous castles where the artwork in them is worth billions. Billions, not millions, billions. And, you know, Fabergé eggs, doing all this stuff. But they don't have it appraised because they don't want it appraised. They just pass it on to their children, to their grandchildren, and everything else, and it just keeps going down the line. Where the tax man gets you is when you sell it. When you go to sell it, then you have to pay tax on that piece, right? So, but you can pass it down to the next generation. They can just keep that collection going. And there's no problem with that, and that's legal to do. But it's a great way to pass on to your next generation. And it's also, art is tangible. You know, you have people say you collect gold. I've never, unless you're making rings with it, I don't know, gold bars or silver bars is kind of difficult. You can't take them to the grocery store. I know a guy down in Big Sur that is, he's got $5 million in silver and in silver bars and everything else. And it's like, what the hell are you going to do with that? You know, you can't even use it in photography anymore. But it's, you know, with the money crashes, then I have the silver. Okay, well, that's good. See, now silver went from 42 down to 14, and it stayed at 14 for the last 15 years. I mean, that was not a really good investment. But artwork, the advantage is not only is it a commodity that is that you can have and sell if you need to sell it, but it's also something you can enjoy, and it's beautiful to enjoy. And what's great about it, it can't be stolen so easily, because with jewelry or something like that where you can melt it down, or diamonds or gold, I mean, that can be sold anywhere. But you try to put that on the internet. I had a truckload of artwork that was going to Japan for a show, and they stole the truck. So they stole the whole thing. I mean, it was like, are you kidding me? I got paid for the whole show, got to do another one, so I was like, okay. But they were really nice pieces, and they disappeared. I mean, and so they said they're at some Don's place in New York or something, and they'll eventually come out, but they're gone, you know, for now, and they never came to light. And my buddies are calling me up, hey, Greg, man, they steal Van Goghs, what are they stealing your shit for? And I said, I have no idea, they must have made a mistake. So anyway, it was, it's great, but anyway.
Well, thank you, Greg. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and
You're
Greg
welcome.
for a great presentation, and to offer you our little.
Oh my goodness, oh yeah, oh man, he's got my name on
Your
it.
name on it.
One-up?
One of a kind, original.
I am stoked, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for coming. And do you want to do a tour of your studio?
Yeah, we can do a tour of our, we have our warehouse downstairs, if you guys, anybody would like to see it. We have also our fabrication building, which is over one block, which my son runs. And but I'll show you the downstairs, and that way you can see what a warehouse looks like. I'm putting an addition on our building over here. We're adding 3,000 square feet, so if we can have more storage area. You'll see when we get downstairs, I need to get out all our cardboard and everything like that out of that space. And that'll be just art downstairs, and then we'll have all the other stuff over at the other facility. But it's always, in artists, it's always about room and space. But anyway, well, let's take a walk down. And yeah, I have some very good records, actually. And so that's luckily my wife is a photographer, and she made sure we had some decent shots. But You know, the whole thing is, you know, it's just it's a dance. It keeps on going. And, you know, I don't have all the answers. I learn them just like you do as we go along. But after 47 years of doing it, I've done just about everything you're going to do so far. Unless you guys have figured out a whole different route that I want to know about.
Does it still give you pleasure?
Oh yeah, are you kidding? I love it. And I'm working, it's amazing. I'm working hard at 68. I'm working just as hard as I did when I was 40. You know, I used to work 16 hours a day though before. I mean, I was just working all the time. And then I'd work minimum 6 days a week, 16 hours a day. You know, and it was because I had projects I had to get done and shows I had coming. But when I did the shows, I didn't consider that work. I mean, I was there, I'd get to go to Nate Nails and have down in Los Angeles and have a nose corned beef that was really good. And so there was different fun things. People would hand me checks, so that doesn't seem like it was work.
How is your work divided between art making and business?
Business I have to handle during the day, you know, a lot of the day, and I'll start painting, you know, around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon and work on stuff, and then I usually paint until 11, 11:30, something like that. So it's fun. It's very simple because my studio and house are very close. I have dinner with my wife, and we used to have dinner and lunch and stuff with the kids when they were little, and then now that they have their own families, she and I have dinner all the time. I sell my work, you know, through art galleries, and you know, but I have art dealers or art decorators and designers that buy stuff to us, and so we give them a little bit of a discount. But we don't do other galleries. I just don't have time. I do not have material to do that.
When you were starting out, was that a balance, like to do like the independent pair shows and try to get the gallery representation? Did you like kind of have a balance between those two?
They didn't want to see me on the street, you know, like in Miami when they have a gallery, they don't want people to be able to go directly to me. So that was an issue, and so I would tell them outright if that was a great show for me and I was doing a lot of business, I still want to do the show. I'd make a lot of money here, so I'm not going to give you all that money, you know. So you know, I sell them at the same price I'm selling them through your gallery, but I want to still be able to do those shows. But you know, some galleries they want exclusive. They say that once I have the market, and if you're not really in that market anyway, that doesn't make any difference to you. But if you've already established a market, then you shouldn't give it up if it's making a lot of money. I consider being an artist the greatest profession in the world. Okay, by far. And I didn't say it's the easiest. I said it's the greatest. Okay, there's a big difference. If you're looking for ease, then you should maybe go into another business. But you know, it's going to be a lot of work. But it's so satisfying because I've met so many friends and interesting clients. I've met people in all businesses from all over the world, and they're exciting people. We just had a young couple from Hong Kong that came in, and he's a gallery owner in Hong Kong, and he bought some pieces from me, so that's pretty cool. And they're just fun, and it's interesting when you find out, you start to get into their businesses who they are, which is sometimes is pretty wild. It's not going to make you famous, but it'll make your day. But all right, well, it was great to have you guys, and we'll stay in touch. If you come down to the gallery, and if I'm around, I'd be glad to show you around a little bit. So.